Okay, so today we're going to talk about effective sentences. Who did what to whom? So first of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, the first thing you want to do is in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that little icon that's a square with little broken things. Click on that so you can look at this full screen because there'll be a lot of detail later on. All right? And also, you'll find a PDF copy of the main points here in Blackboard as well, so that you can follow along. So, by effective sentences, we're moving a little bit beyond simply that it's technically correct. A sentence should tell a story. Who did what to whom? And when we answer that question, not only do our sentences flow better, but additionally, we can answer questions about editing and punctuation very, very simply. Students always tell me they learn more in in 30 minutes from this presentation than they do from from all the years of school so far. So when I'm talking about sentence structure, I'm not simply talking about following grammar rules. So sentence structure is like road signs. It tells the readers where you're headed. It tells the readers which information is most important. It clarifies your own thinking. And it dictates punctuation. So we're going to start here and then backtrack through some of this. So you have probably at some point grown up with the rule that you use a comma where you want to pause. We're going to let go of that rule now. Because commas aren't pause markers. Commas are road signs. They show the structure. If the road turns left, you don't want to turn right. When the road goes straight ahead and we want to pause, we don't put up a sign, right? So we just go ahead and pause. So let me show you how this works. If we're careless about where we put the commas, we actually mess up the meaning of the sentence. Swords flashing, comma, our heroes dashed into action, right? So a tale of epic adventure. The subject is heroes. What did the heroes do? They dashed. Where did they dash? Into action. If we move that comma, swords, comma, flashing our heroes, comma, dashed into action. And now we've completely changed this. Now we have swords as the subject. The swords are dashing into action. And by the way, they are also, flashing our heroes. So it really dramatically changes the nature of the sentence. There's a story about a panda who, sorry, let me start again. There's a story about a panda who walks into a restaurant, orders a sandwich, eats the sandwich, takes out a gun and starts shooting up the place. And so everybody goes, oh my God, what happened here? And the panda takes out an old wildlife manual, throws it at the waiter and says, hey, look it up. So the waiter looks it up and it says, panda, a large bear-like mammal, native to China, eats, shoots, and leaves. So this one careless comma turns this peaceful vegetarian into a murderous mammal. So that's it. The commas aren't pauses. They actually tell readers how to read the sentence. So we have to get clear about your meaning, and you have to make that meaning clear to readers. So that's what we're going to talk about. The way to do this is to look at the structure of the sentence, starting with the most basic sentence, the simple sentence. By simple sentence, I don't mean short, but rather it's the structure is simple. It's who did what to whom. What's the story? Say subject, verb, object in English grammar language. Susan kicked Joe, right? Subject, verb, object. Who did what to whom? We can have shorter sentences. Peter blinked with just the subject and a verb. We can have sentences with complements. Sugar is sweet. Not all, not just this sugar, all sugar. It's how sugar works, right? But most of the time we're telling a story. Raccoons harassed the farmer. Who did what to whom? That's the story. So if the sentence is longer and more complex, that's still the structure we're looking at. Just as if the road goes straight for a long, long time, we don't have to say, it's been a while since we put up a curve sign, shouldn't we put one in? So as we make the sentence longer, but not more complex in structure, we still don't use commas. We could have more than one person or thing doing the action, raccoons and skunks. They could do more than one thing, harassed and irritated. They could do it to more than one person, farmers and the villagers. Okay? So, but this is still a simple sentence. It's still who did what to whom. Raccoons and skunks harassed and irritated the farmers and the villagers. So as I explore this concept, I'm going to make this sentence ridiculously long. I wouldn't, just to be clear, I wouldn't actually write this sentence. My whole point is that as long as I'm clear about the structure, at least the meaning is clear, if at the expense of style in the demonstration. So I could add modifiers to this sentence and still not change the structure. So modifiers, of course, are words, adjectives that describe nouns, and the adverbs that modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs, or groups of words, phrases, and clauses. So let's do these one at a time. First, let's add some words to modify. So in English, we put that word right in front. The marauding raccoons, the vicious skunks, the hot-tempered farmers, the flustered villagers. So, right, we wouldn't say the car red. We say the red car. In English, that's straight ahead, no comma. We could use adverbs to describe the verbs: gleefully harassed, thoroughly irritated. We could add adverbs to describe the adjectives and other adverbs, right? The rapidly marauding raccoons, right? They're rapidly marauding. They're not rapidly raccoons. It's not poof, you're a raccoon or anything like that. So the rapidly marauding raccoons and the always vicious skunks, quite gleefully harassed and rather thoroughly irritated, the extremely hot-tempered farmers and the generally flustered villagers. So still no comma. While my sentence has gotten kind of long and wordy, it is still who did what to whom, and so that structure is still simple. Now let's add some phrases. A phrase is any group of words: blue from the cold, one snowy January morning, and revenge for the harsh petty measures. Any group of words that's a phrase. Is a very low bar for entry there. Now, before, when we're using one word, we could just stick it in front. But when we're using a group, we need to mark it in some way. So we surround them with commas. Blue from the cold, comma, raccoons harass the farmers. Or raccoons, comma, blue from the cold, comma, harass the farmers. Pretty much you can put it anywhere you want as long as you surround it with commas. Except, we don't want to do this. Raccoons harass the farmers, comma, blue from the cold. Why not? Because now it looks like the farmers are blue from the cold, not the raccoons. Okay? So you can put it pretty much anywhere, but it's got to be somewhere near what you're modifying. If you don't, then that's an error called a misplaced modifier. And that's what happens here. If the modifier is misplaced, it now seems to describe the wrong thing. So let's add some phrases. One snowy January morning, comma. The rapidly marauding raccoons and the always vicious skunks, comma, blue from the cold, comma, in revenge for the harsh petty measures, comma, quite gleefully harassed and rather thoroughly irritated, the extremely hot-tempered farmers and the generally flustered villagers. So, it's not a great sentence, I admit, but it is clear, and it's clear because the commas clearly lay out the structure. All right. Now, not all phrases need commas. Some phrases we recognize already are one group. One example of this is prepositional phrases. Prepositions are words that show relationship: to, down, up, over, around, through. But relationship to what, right? Down what, up what, through what? So we use them in phrases: over the river, through the woods, to grandmother's house, up the creek without a paddle. Okay? To the limits of their patience. So readers know that's one unit. Another example is infinitives. An infinitive is to plus a verb: to run, to swim, to jump, to learn, to study, to write. It turns it from a verb into a concept. Okay? I like to swim. I'm not swimming in that sentence. I'm liking, right? I like, what do you like? To swim. So we recognize that as one unit. Anything that marks a noun. This could be numbers and colors, right? One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Or demonstrative adjectives. Demonstrative adjectives are adjectives that point. That car, those people, these books. Okay? Such atrocities. So any of these phrases we can use without commas. Readers will know that's one unit. One snowy January morning, comma. The rapidly marauding raccoons and the always vicious skunks, comma, blue from the cold, comma, and revenge for the harsh petty measures, comma, quite gleefully harassed, and rather thoroughly irritated the extremely hot-tempered farmers and the generally flustered villagers to the limits of their patience to endure such atrocities. And it's still a simple sentence. It's just that we've added modifiers. It's still who did what to whom. Okay? Now, Some sentences, I don't know whether I need a comma, or I don't know whether you need a comma. And so let's clarify those two situations. Here's a common problem. In Revenge for the Harsh Petty Measures, I used a comma there. One snowy January morning, I did not use a comma there. So what's the difference? Well, in coordinate adjectives, I have a list. In Revenge for the Harsh Measures, the Petty Measures, right? I could have said, instead of the comma, harsh and petty measures. It's a sequence. So if I could say and between the adjectives, then I can use a comma instead of the and. Okay? So then I would need a comma. Because they're not harshly petty, as an adverb. It's harsh measures, they're petty measures. One snowy January morning, however, I don't have a word that means that, so I have to build that. That's what cumulative means. Okay? Now, I would not say one and snowy and January morning. So that's the difference right there. Okay? If I can use and, comma, no comma. When we talk about restrictive versus non-restrictive phrases, I don't know what you mean, you have to help me. These two sentences do not say the same thing, and I do not know what you mean. So people who frequently attend these auctions spend a lot of money. In this sentence, a clause here, who frequently attend these auctions, makes the group people smaller. It's not all people, it's only the people who frequently attend the auctions who spend a lot of money. That's why that is a restrictive phrase. In this sentence, though, with the commas, remember, commas mark something, a modifier I have stuck in. So in this sense, it's people spend a lot of money. All the people spend money. By the way, they frequently attend these auctions. So that's a non-restrictive phrase. It does not make the group of people smaller. Okay? Even worse yet, if you use only one of those commas, now no one has any idea what you mean. So that's the distinction. Am I modifying this group in terms of making it smaller, or am I just adding another factor? All right, so let's leave the simple sentence. Even though we wrote long sentences, those are not run-ons. Run-ons actually have nothing to do with length. Run-ons are a structure problem. So if we use all simple sentences, writing will be choppy. Little kids write this way. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm having a lot of fun at camp. We learned how to swim yesterday. Then we went on a hike. We got on top of a mountain. It was high. You could see a long way. I got dizzy. I like Concert Howard. I don't like the food so much. Give Fluffy a big kiss. Say hi to Grandma. Everything is idea stop, idea stop, idea stop. That's why it's choppy. If you have longer sentences in your draft or essay, but they are all simple sentences, it will still be choppy. It'll just be idea, stop, idea, stop. So what do we do about that? Well, we package information by combining related ideas. We learned to swim yesterday, and then we went on a hike, so we combined things we did. I like Concert Howard, but I don't like the food so much, so we combine likes and dislikes. Packaging information is what's called coordination. Here's how that works. We are combining independent clauses. So a clause is any group of words with a subject and a verb. If that clause can be a sentence all by itself, it's independent. If it cannot be a sentence by itself, it is dependent and needs an independent clause. So here, we're combining independent clauses. Independent clauses can be sentences all by themselves. So if you have two groups that can be sentences by themselves, and you slam them into the same sentence, we need some way to coordinate that. We need a traffic cop of sorts. You stay, you go, now you turn, that kind of thing. So it's exactly like that. If we don't do that, then we have collisions. Joe went to the store, he bought milk. So this is two independent clauses. Joe went to the store, that can be a sentence. He bought milk, that can be a sentence. But when we run these together, that's called a fused sentence, and here's the problem. Joe went to the store he bought. Now, when did Joe buy this store? Is this like a milk store or something? So obviously in this short sentence, I'm going to figure it out. But even though this is a short sentence, it is a run-on, specifically a fused sentence run-on. That's why you can't do it. It is confusing. We no longer know what you mean. So how do we fix this? So first of all, understand that run-ons have nothing to do with the length. It's all about the sentence structure. So we have to look at the structure. What people all too often do is solve it like this. Joe went to the store, comma, he bought milk. This is still a run-on. You've just changed what kind of run-on it is. You've given a sign, but it's the wrong sign. Joe went to the store, comma, he bought milk. These are independent clauses, so which is modifying which? They're both sentences. So I, the reader, will assume this is items in a series. Joe went to the store, he bought milk, yeah, and where's the rest of the series? You haven't finished. So I'm confused again. So this is simply a comma splice run-on, right? So we could make this two sentences. Joe went to the store, period, he bought milk, period. It's correct, but now we're back to choppy. We could use a semicolon. Joe went to the store, semicolon, he bought milk. And by the way, if you use a semicolon, there should be a sentence on either side of it. You'll find some uses in handbooks that say, to help clarify confusing lists. But if your sentence is so confusing, you have to start using semicolons to make sense of it. Make a list or make a table or make more than one sentence. So a semicolon is useful if there's a tight connection between the clauses. Like Stephen Douglas won the debates, semicolon, Abraham Lincoln won the election. Okay, that's ironic, so I might want to put those together with a semicolon. I probably wouldn't do that here, although it would grammatically correct. More often, I'm going to use one of the fanboys. It stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. These are coordinating conjunctions. You have to memorize these, so it's very important, fanboys. Why do you have to memorize these? Because your option is to memorize 6 dozen subordinating conjunctions. It's way easier just to remember fanboys. So here's how they work. Fanboys are traffic cops. They're superheroes. So it's like one day there's this independent clause. Joe went to the store, walking down the street. But oh no, it's headed right for an independent clause. He bought milk. There's going to be a collision. Whatever shall we do? So we send a sign, right? Joe went to the store, comma, right? And then it's fanboy to the rescue, and he bought milk, right? So the silly joke is important. Joe went to the store, comma, fanboy. You always send a sign before the superhero comes. Until Batman sees that bat signal, he's on the couch watching soaps. Okay, the comma goes before the fanboys. That will help you remember that. Joe went to the store, comma, and he bought milk. That's how these sentences relate. Now be careful. Don't just go putting commas in sentences. Joe went to the store and bought milk. No comma. Why? This is a simple sentence, right? Joe did 2 things. He went and bought. He went to the store, he bought milk. This is not combining 2 sentences. Joe went to the store and bought milk. That's not a sentence, right? If we said, and he bought milk, now we need a comma, because that's 2 sentences. Joe went to the store, comma, however, comma, he forgot his wallet. This is also a comma splice run-on. Joe went to the store is a sentence. However, comma, he forgot his wallet. That is a sentence. So this would be a good place for a semicolon. Okay? Then the however is something we've stuck in and appropriately put a comma there. Don't just go putting semicolons in front of howevers. Joe, however, always carried spare money in his shoe. This is a however we've stuck into a simple sentence, right? Joe always carried spare money in his shoe. We put that however in and appropriately put commas around it. There's like 6 comma rules that apply to if you stick something in a sentence, put commas around it. All right. So again, you've probably learned more about commas right there than you have in years. So apply those to your drafts. And do it right now. Get your draft out. Get your essay out. Start going through and looking at your structure. So we want to stop guessing about things and instead look at the structure so that you have good answers to those things. So quick review of paragraphs. A paragraph is in fact a small paper. So you want to make sure all these ideas are related. Make sure they're all unified. You want to work on paragraphs first, sentences second. So you don't want to be revising sentences that later you find out you have to cut, right, or dramatically change. This is a really useful tool. Read the first and last sentences of a paragraph together. Do they fit smoothly? If they don't, your paragraph rambles off topic, or the first or the last sentence are vague, or both, or the topic sentence or the concluding sentence are missing. And so with that, one of those three things will solve it. Do the paragraphs in your essay fit together? Here's a really cool trick. Read the topic for each paragraph together as if they form one big paragraph. Is it unified, developed, coherent? Is it all on one topic? Is it explained? Does it flow smoothly and logically? If it does, your paragraphs in your essay flow smoothly and logically as well. You don't have to do anything weird to connect them. Okay? But if not, then your essay kind of jumps around. So change it. These problems with these topic sentences will show you exactly where the essay needs some adjustment. Okay? If you're watching this video, we've probably already talked about this example in class, but quick review. So again, the Mona Lisa is a portrait by Leonardo da Vinci of an Italian woman about whom we know little, but then we don't really talk about that. We just talk about random things. So the paragraph doesn't really have a point. And if you read the first sentence with the last sentence, they don't make any sense together. Complete change of subject. Right? So by focusing, what exactly point am I making? Everything in this painting creates serene repose, and one must then we have a better idea of what to put in. We want details that support that. Okay? And then where are we going with this? One must perhaps come away a bit more serene oneself. So this really could be smoothed out, by the way, this first sentence and last sentence. Okay? But now it has a focus, and now we can start working on it more appropriately. Make sure you don't omit steps. So research indicates certain kinds of monkeys have considerable language skills. Carl Sagan deals with chimpanzees taught American Sign Language and eventually could construct phrases. James Deussen and colleagues found chimpanzees have a language center. That seems like a change of subject to me, right? Apes have cultural information. That's a change of subject. I'm missing something. So go through step by step. Okay, so what actually happened was this was fine, but then medical research provides further support for the idea that chimpanzees are capable of linguistic tasks. So she forgot to tell me her next point. When I know that, James Deussen and colleagues found, for example, I know those are medical researchers and how it relates to language. Okay? And then down here, when she says that these differences are language skills, I understand the connection with apes. However, it would be great to know that this has to do with language skills up here in this sentence, not way at the back 3 sentences later. So that would be something to look at. Okay, and then research indicates certain kinds of monkeys have considerable language skills. Such differences could come about, some investigators claim, only through language skills. You notice that that leaves me confused as a reader. If I only have those 2 sentences, what differences? So that needs some cleanup yet. So we talked about grouping related ideas. It's funny to think both the New York Times and Daily News are published in New York City. That really doesn't make much of a point, and so she just rambles and says random things. Instead, group these. We have a point. The New York Times and Daily News are like night and day in the news business. Even a quick glance shows a major difference. More important difference, what's covered, even the tone in which it's presented. The 2 papers are obviously imagining different audiences. And then the stuff that goes after those bolded main points. What do I see in a quick glance? What do I see in terms of what's covered? What do I see in terms of the tone, right? How so are these in different audiences? If I read the first and the last sentence together here, it's very, very clear. They're night and day in the news business. The Times assumes readers want to know what's happening and why. The Daily News assumes readers have short attention spans and little interest in the outside world. This is exactly how to write a good paragraph. Okay? Coherence is how you flow from one idea to the other. You want to make sure your paragraphs are organized and structured well first before you look at coherence. You can flow from idea to idea and make no sense. Sawyer, Wisconsin is the snowmobile capital of the world. The buzzing of snowmobile engines fills the air and their tank-like tracks crisscross the snow. The snow reminds me of Mom's mashed potatoes covered with furrows I would draw with my fork. Her mashed potatoes usually make me sick, that's why I play with them. I like to make a hole in the middle of the potatoes and fill it with butter. This behavior has become the subject of long chats between me and my analyst. Well, that certainly has flow, but it doesn't have any point, right? It has nothing to do with the snowmobile capital of the world. Oops, went too soon. Okay, make sense? So that's why we want to do structure first, topic sentence and concluding sentence first, main points first, evidence for those main points, and then look at how you're flowing from idea to idea. Now we're at the sentence level. So readers need to know why they're reading that next sentence. Some astonishing questions about the nature of the universe have been raised by scientists studying black holes in space. The collapse of a dead star into a point perhaps no larger than a marble creates a black hole. So much matter compressed into so little volume changes the fabric of space around in puzzling ways. So look at sentence 2 here. We don't know how this sentence connects with the idea of black holes until the very end of the sentence. That makes it hard to read. What we want to do is put that information sooner. In sentence 3, we immediately, we talked about the collapse of matter. That's the first thing it mentions, so readers immediately get it. Right? So we want to say this. Some astonishing questions about the nature of the universe have been raised by scientists studying black holes in space. So just change your sentence so that you mention that connection first, not later. A black hole, okay, I'm with you, is created by the collapse of a dead star into a point perhaps no larger than a marble. Okay, so I mentioned that collapse very next. So much matter compressed in so little volume changes the fabric of space around in puzzling ways. So start your sentences with the immediate connection to what you just said, and your writing will flow. And so you do the structure of your paragraphs and so forth first. You do all that content, and now you can just play with it sentence by sentence so that each sentence starts with a connection to what you just said. It will vastly improve your writing. Look at your sentence topics. This is a paragraph that tells how to use sentence topics, but it ignores that advice. And it's confusing. The particular ideas toward the beginning of sentences define what a passage is about for a reader. Moving through a paragraph from a coherent point of view is made possible by a sequence of topics that constitute a limited set of... This is very confusing. It's hard to follow. Okay? It's not clear at all. And look at what the sentences start with. Particular ideas, moving through a paragraph, a seeming absence of context, feelings of dislocation. There's no immediate connection for readers when they scan the paragraph. So we want to make sure that the topics are limited and related. What two things is this paragraph about? Well, this is about how readers use sentence topics. Great! Every sentence and clause should start with a word that says one or the other. Readers look for consistent topics of sentences to tell them what a whole passage is about. If they feel that a sequence of topics focuses on a limited set of related topics, then they will feel they are moving through that passage from a coherent point of view. But if topics seem to shift randomly, then readers have to begin each sentence from no coherent point of view, and when that happens, they feel dislocated and disoriented, and the passage seems out of focus. So once you've got good coherence, make the actual beginning of your sentence about one of those two things. Now, if you needed to make a distinction between the subject of the sentence and how the sentence starts, you can use an introductory phrase. For readers, comma, and now you can start, with whatever subject you wish. That will work. And that's it. That's how to revise your stuff. Okay? So take a look at this, review this presentation, and apply it to your drafts, and look forward to looking at this with you together. All right? Take care. And by the way, don't be afraid to watch this more than once.